set, Paul?
All set.
All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to thank everyone, and I'm very honored to be chair here of the Board of Education. 3 weeks ago, I would never have thought I'd be sitting in this chair here. I promise you I'll do my best, work my hardest, and get everything accomplished that we want to accomplish as a complete board here. And what I've experienced in life, anything unexpected in life has always turned out to be wonderful for me. So I appreciate this unexpected opportunity, and I'm going to do my best for the community and for the Board of Education here in East Hampton. The expectations I have, no different than what Chris Goff would have had for board members. Please arrive on time. If you're late, you'll have to catch up, and we're not going to repeat anything that we talked about previously. Please have your cell phones muted. If you need to use them, please go out in the hallway for any emergencies, or if you need to reach out to someone. And also, new board members, please resist any temptation during audience of citizens to react and talk back. It's not part of the equation, and just resist any comments back. Before we start with student recognitions, I want to make a statement on mask wearing. Effective immediately, mask wearing at the Board of Education meetings will be optional. And in talking with Paul and talking with mask wearing during school hours, after school hours it's not mandatory. And what we could do is options for wearing a mask will be optional. If you want to wear them, great. If you don't, that's fine too. And Paul, in talking with Paul about discussions that he's had with other superintendents, with state health officials, it's not a mandate that we wear masks after school hours, which in the case of the high school would be 2:30. So effective immediately, masks will be voluntary, and if you want to wear your mask, please do. If you don't want to wear your mask, you could just remove them now. And since wearing a mask was not based on policy, there's no vote needed to do what I'm suggesting. It's just, we could take our masks off now, please wear them, but that will be the case going forward. And if some pandemic pops up or something we need to do to change my mind on mask wearing, we could certainly address that.
Jim, if I could just clarify for
Sure.
our live stream audience and anybody that listens to this afterwards, school-sponsored events such as our concerts, the play Christmas Carol, and winter basketball games that take place at the school, the audience would still be required per DPH and the SDE requirements to wear masks at those events.
Correct. And Board of Education would not fall under that purview.
The Board of Education, since it's an outside group of adults, basically, it is not necessarily a requirement.
Okay, wonderful. Now if we can move on to student recognitions.
Well, we're very excited tonight to have two students join us. The school district is a member of the New England School Development Council, and we choose two students each year based on this council's awards. The award is called the Award for Academic Growth and Student Leadership and Learning. Mr. Werner is going to introduce you to our two students who are being recognized tonight, Madison Evans and Nicholas Hvac. So both of you would come forward, please. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Stand just in front of the table so we can catch you on the live stream. And Mr. Bird is going to brag about the both of you.
Caring, determined, and responsible. Madison Evans is all of these things and so much more. Over the past 4 years, it has been a pleasure to watch Madison grow and develop into a more independent and hardworking young woman. I am excited for Madison as she begins the next phase of her life, and I know that she is more than ready to meet the challenges of college. She will be an incredibly successful college student. Academically, Madison has maintained a 3.9758 grade point average. Each year, Madison has chosen to take more and more rigorous courses than the last, taking mostly level 1 courses during her senior year, and she is currently enrolled in the highest level of French and has taken on 3 additional college level courses. Madison plans on pursuing a career in the nursing field, specifically pediatric nursing. Madison selected courses during her senior year that apply directly to her intended major: Anatomy 1 and 2, physics, the preschooler, and Yukon lifespan development to make sure she is prepared for her coursework in college. Madison also loves to get involved. She enjoys helping others and looks for ways to make things just a little extra special for those around her. She is a student representative for the Prevention Partnership, where the goal is to stop the use of drugs and alcohol in minors. And additionally, she is the president of the French Club. And this year, she, as in past years, has raised money for the turkey plunge with her family, helping this group raise over $1,000 every year. She loves to give back to the community and is passionate about helping others, and has a phenomenal sense of humor. Congratulations, Madison. Nick Rivera. Nick is an exceptionally bright and capable student who has grown over his 4 years at East Hampton High School. He has all of the skills required for success at the college level and beyond. Nick, too, is placed in all upper level and advanced courses, including numerous AP courses at East Hampton High School. He has achieved a 4.0628 GPA thus far. Nick is also enrolled in the Advanced Manufacturing program at Ram High School, which we are incredibly excited about. He is an extremely quick learner and hard worker. He is organized, focused, and mature. He takes his academics and his future seriously. I have the utmost confidence in Nick and feel that he will not only continue to be successful at the next level, but will truly continue to reach his potential. He is a well-liked and respected member of the class of 2022. He is an athlete who competed on the cross-country and track teams and is a state champion pole vaulter. Nick is also a leader in the Student Ambassador Club and holds a part-time job at Pose where he holds down multiple responsibilities. He is able to balance and prioritize these responsibilities very successfully. The sky is the limit for Nick. I have enjoyed watching him grow and mature into the kind of self-assured young man that he is today. I am incredibly proud of him and can't wait to hear about all he achieves in the future. Congratulations, Nick.
We'd like to do a picture with our board chair, but we have a certificate for each of you. And unless you're way ahead of the schedule, we have your first Christmas decoration to take home with you, but we'll do the picture and then grab the plants. Come right over, we're going to put you right in front of the bell here. Mr. Vernon, would you come and be in the picture as well? Parents, don't be shy if you'd like to come down and take the pictures. We'll wait for you.
All right, I'm going to take a couple, 1, 2, 3, and one with flash. 1, 2, 3, and one more for good measure. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Come right in and take a picture. All right. Congratulations to both of you.
I'd like to move on to liaisons. Any interboard liaisons here this evening? I don't see any. Oh, yes, Brendan.
Mr. Chair, everyone, thank you. All we have from the town council report is last meeting, we approved the bidding requirements to allow, or we waived the town code bidding requirements to allow a maximum of 1-year extension for the tax refund contract. That's it.
All right, thank you. Labor Union Representative. Neil here. Labor, I don't see Neil, so you need to live streaming or not? Okay.
I did not get it.
Okay, all right. Now we're going into update from a principal, director of curriculum, special education, personnel services. If I could start with, we'll start with the principal. How about the high school first? Kind of, no. Well, I was going to go. I didn't see Rodney here. I was going to put him on the spot. He always seems to go last. Oh, there he's behind there. He's always in the back. I'm going to juggle up what Chris had done.
So in the high school, as I said many times before, we're incredibly excited about the activities that our students are able to engage in this year. The turkey plunge took place a week ago. It was a 55-degree Saturday, so it wasn't as cold as it's been in past years. And Ms. Keska's group, as usual, did a phenomenal job raising over $1,300 for the community. We're excited about the Christmas Carol, which will be taking place on December 3rd, 4th, and 5th here at the high school with our student student group. And then on the 4th, the ever popular Breakfast with Santa on Saturday the 4th. And I'll let Ms. Russell talk very briefly about brand manufacturing.
Sure. So our manufacturing students were accepted into the program and are in the process of taking their math placement test as we speak. 3 students will be participating in the program with RAM. They'll be going every day for the first 2 periods of the day. Start second semester. We're very excited about the 3 candidates that we have going. I think it's going to be a fantastic experience. Really.
Does anyone have any questions for the high school? I do have a question. Is it possible for board members to go and visit RAM to see the program? Has that ever been asked or done? I'd love to go see it.
I could certainly
Yeah,
reach
just
out to
check.
as Mr. Garner said before, there's some transition. The
Yep.
person that is currently running the RAM manufacturing program at RAM is transitioning, so he and someone else is coming in, so I can reach out to the new person and see if that's a possibility.
All right, great, thank you. Now we'll move on to Rodney. He'll go second.
Actually, I don't have any new updates in addition to what's happening in the schools that the principals are sharing.
Okay. How about middle school?
And all the way back here.
Oh.
We held parent conferences last week and we really had a fantastic turnout of families who participated to connect on their child's progress, both in-person and virtual conferences. Our winter athletics started this week with basketball and cheerleading. Everyone is excited to start this new season. After being paused for over a year and a half, I'm really excited to share that we are reestablishing Student Council and will facilitate meetings twice a month. We look forward to sharing out what the group accomplishes. Ski Club's going to be here before we know it. The snow is coming. And so we began communicating out signups for that club, and that will begin in January. Just to piggyback off, Early Act Club volunteered last week at the annual turkey plunge. I brought my girls there. They were in awe at people who were willing to jump them into the cold water. The club helped to raise just about $1,000 to help the local food bank to provide families in need this holiday season. Our students and staff in the middle school are in the middle of book bingo. So starting today through January 2nd, the goal is to read 5 books and cross off squares pertaining to those books to win bingo. In January, winners will get a hot chocolate bar. And then in continuing to build relationships among colleagues, we facilitated a Panther Friday Fun Bingo with our staff members, and winners were given a coupon for a duty to be covered by Mrs. Asklar or myself.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions for the middle school? All right, we'll move on to Memorial School.
Sure. November has flown by and been packed with learning opportunities. Next Wednesday and Thursday, we will be meeting with families to review students' first trimester progress. Our goal is to have 100% of our families participate in parent-teacher conferences, either remotely or in person. And as of this afternoon, we were at 99.5% of our families signed up and ready to come in for conferences. Today, in honor of one of our students at Memorial School, we recognize 22Q Day. 22Q Day is a day that's devoted to bringing awareness to a disorder called 22Q deletion syndrome. It's recognized by wearing red on November 22nd, which is why Andrea and I are orange in our red this evening. We're so touched to see the number of students and staff decked out in red today, and we hope our students felt very supported by all of us at Memorial School. Students will have 2 wonderful opportunities to check out new books over the next couple of weeks. Tomorrow there will be a virtual author visit with Peter Reynolds, and the Scholastic Book Fair will take place when we return from Thanksgiving. It will be in person again this year, which we're really thrilled about, and students will be able to browse the book fair in person during their library media classes. And finally, 2 great events coming up in December. On December 13th, our Food Services Director, Jen Bowe, will be hosting Magical Monday in our cafeteria. The cafeteria will be magically transformed into a formal dining experience that day. Students and staff will wear their fanciest clothes and practice using their best manners during their lunch waves. And on December 14th, 15th, and 16th, our kindergarten teachers will present their ABC fashion show, where our youngest learners will parade their growing knowledge of letters and sounds to all who come to watch.
Great. Any questions for Memorial School? Yes, sir.
Yeah. Concerning the lunch idea, will you be doing like a full menu of forks, knives, and spoons to go through like, what each one is, in a formal setting?
So they won't have a full place setting, no. But there will be a review of how they use silverware appropriately and how we sit when we're out in having a formal experience, and the way we speak to one another and ask for food when we're going through the line and saying thank you. And then just because kids will be all dressed up, they'll be extra careful with their food and be cautious about the way they're carrying their trays and cleaning up after lunch. So it's just the whole experience brings sort of an elevated, set of standards to the event.
All right, great. Any further questions for Memorial School? All right, we'll move on to Center School.
All right, thank you. Good evening. Center School fifth graders participated in the Connecticut governor elections. Students watched the video of each candidate and cast a ballot that was tallied, and our school totals were sent to Hartford for the statewide election. We continue to take advantage of field trip opportunities. Our fifth grade students enjoyed their time in the Hvac Museum with many interactive exhibits and authentic artifacts. As we practice kindness and caring, we are currently running a coin drive that will benefit the East Hampton Food Bank and turn the coins into gift cards for those in need of food and warm clothing during the holiday season. And the end of the trimester is upon us. Practice reports go home next Tuesday, and the first round of parent conferences take place next week as well. And we're excited for award-winning author and illustrator Peter Reynolds. He's visiting Center School tomorrow morning. We are fortunate to host Mr. Reynolds in our library for a presentation and book signing.
Any questions for Center School? I do have a question generally for any visitors for books. Do we reach out to them? Are they local authors? How does that work when we find? I think it's great to bring in those authors. I just don't know the process that goes in behind finding one. Do we reach out to them or?
So we find authors a number of ways, actually. Sometimes it is a local author. Sometimes even they live right here in the community, and they have recently published a book, either through a large publishing firm or self-published. And when that happens, we, in the past, have invited them in whole school. Over the last couple of years, we've had to be a little bit more creative about how we offer those opportunities. So virtually is one option, although tomorrow they'll be at Center School, and then that presentation will be available to us at Memorial School virtually, because the author was only going to go to one school tomorrow. We also use R.J. Julia's booksellers in Madison and Middletown, and they have a wonderful store-to-school program. So when there is a well-known author visiting the area for a book signing, or because he or she may be promoting a new book, the bookseller is able to reach out to local schools and basically offer the opportunity. And because we established a really great relationship with R.J. Julia over the years, they oftentimes let us know about authors who are coming ahead of time, which is what happened in this case. They reached out and said, Peter Reynolds is coming, are you interested? And Rebecca Flannery, who's our library media specialist, K5, is amazing at organizing those events, and she said, absolutely, we're on board. And so we were able to bring Peter Reynolds very quickly to both of our schools, which was kind of lucky, actually, in this case. But oftentimes it is through R.J. Julia, other times it's a local author, like I said. And sometimes we just really do a search for authors who live in the New England area and who might be interested in coming to do a book signing and a presentation to students.
Do we have more authors than time to place them in classes to talk? Is there that a big choice to pull from?
I wouldn't say there are more authors available than classrooms, no.
So we have enough.
We have enough. And again, R.J. Julia has become really a wonderful source of finding those authors. They have a community events calendar on their website that's open to the public. And you can log on to that calendar and see what authors are coming to the area. And even if they're not participating in the store-to-school partnership, once you know they're coming to the area, oftentimes schools will just reach out to them on their own and say, how long are you going to be in the area? Are you interested in visiting our school? But when you do it that way, there is a significant cost associated, so that takes fundraising and other things.
Okay, understood. And now Mary.
and leaders, as we look at their curriculum articulation process, where they have to ensure a certain format for NEASC, and that's an ongoing project for us. So making sure that teachers are comfortable in that format and have a planned schedule in order to produce that curriculum. Also, as the principals mentioned, we finished already the first quarter of the school year at the middle and high school, and we're nearing the end of the first trimester at the elementary schools. And so we are always looking very carefully at student achievement and the needs of our students. And so one of the ways that we're able to measure that is through the interim assessment blocks that are available to districts from the State Department of Education. They're very brief, targeted assessments that relate to our final spring summative, the Smarter Balanced Assessment, in the areas of math and literacy and science. And so our instructional specialists are working with teachers to utilize those assessments so that they can measure student growth and performance. And then lastly, another core structure that continues that I want to really celebrate is at our K-5 level. We were able to sort of re-implement our instructional data team process this year. I mentioned it earlier, but I wanted to highlight it with the full new membership of the board. It was very difficult during last school year to run meetings with teachers for a number of different reasons, but this year we're able to really have them sit down with their administration once a month, their instructional specialists, to really look at how students are doing and plan for their needs in the classroom in a very proactive way. And I just want to celebrate the work that both the Memorial and Center administrative teams are doing to partner with their teachers in the best interests of our students. So it's been a big success to bring that back this year, and I know our teachers are appreciative of it.
Great. Any questions for Mary? All right, very well. We'll move on to audience of citizens. And if there's anyone who'd like to speak, well, please keep it to 3 minutes or less and state your name and address. Yes.
Hello. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Dominic, and I live in Middle Haven Road, Middletown. I would like to have the board consider adding to the next agenda discussion on how our curriculum can be more transparent. I spoke a little bit about this at the last hearing, but it goes beyond that. And I'd also like the board to consider how we can have open discussion and input from parents on what is appropriate and not appropriate for our children. Today I read an article in West Hartford schools now require curriculum starting in kindergarten about gender, literacy, including transgender, in line with social justice standards. The article says the programs are the new target for activist parents. I'm not an activist, I'm a parent. And I believe in certain topics are not appropriate to be taught in our public schools. These topics being presented to our children are issues that adults grapple to understand and have difficulty having an open discussion about. Now, luckily, we don't live in West Hartford, but how do we as parents ensure that we don't adopt social justice programs that have no place in our schools? I'm sure I'm not the only person in this community that has concerns, and my concerns don't only arise from this recent article. I've even seen it firsthand in reading materials brought home by my daughter who was in 4th grade. A recent book she brought home from center school was The Fearless Flights of Hazel Yang Lee, written by Julie Leon. The subject of this book is Hazel Yang Lee, who served in the United States WASP program in World War II, which is a program that saw female citizen pilots to fly military aircraft for deployment to the war effort. The actual historical story of Hazel Yang Lee is an amazing story that is truly inspirational in how Miss Lee dreamed of flying and achieved this despite social barriers for women. As my daughter and I began reading the story, I thought it would be a wonderful story to see Miss Lee's achievements and as an inspiration. However, I soon realized that this book had another narrative. This narrative turned to other sensitive issues, including broaching the topic of racism in America in the 1930s and 40s. Now, I'm not saying that stories cannot be inspirational that address racial injustice. My concern comes from presenting this to a 4th grade student. Young children have no idea of these concepts and also do not, quote, possess the ability to understand these topics as in today's society and as it relates to them in their lives. My second issue with this, with the book, presents the sensitive topic in a very skewed manner with its own very clear bias. I quote, this is from the book, American Americans didn't want to hire the Chinese, and who would hire a Chinese girl pilot? Think about the use of the words Americans as a whole. This author just made a generalized, broad stroke proclamation that all Americans didn't want to hire Chinese. How is this statement appropriate in any setting, let alone fourth grade? There are other examples of bias on the part of the author. This book had major omissions that I think is very telling of what the true motive of the author may have been. There's no part of this book that explored the fact that Miss Lee moved to China in 1933 after getting her pilot's license in order to join the Chinese Air Force in its defense against Japan. The author failed to even mention that she was denied as a pilot in the Chinese Air Force and instead given an administrative desk job because she was a woman. Completely omitted from this book. After returning to the United States on bombing Pearl Harbor, she then served for the United States WASP program, and along with another Chinese woman at the time, Ms. Maggie G, were successful in doing that. Again, the United States as a whole is made out to be an antagonist in this story. Remember, Americans didn't want to hire Chinese. The author only wanted to disparage America as a whole and conversely ignore the injustices of China or other countries. Countries with substantially fewer human rights in comparison to America at the time in history. What is most infuriating is that this makes statements about Americans who didn't want to hire Chinese when over 400,000 Americans gave their lives in World War II defending the freedoms of not only Miss Lee, but everyone else sitting in this room. This book is just an example of how sensitive topic can be presented in a biased way. The author usurped the amazing achievements of Miss Lee in order to attack our great nation and bring divisiveness among us. The sensitive topic of race and sexism was presented to my daughter from a point of view of an author with a clear bias. I fear that my discovery of this material is just the tip of the iceberg. I have serious concerns about what other materials exist in our schools and may be inappropriate. Just as this author has been allowed to infiltrate the center school library with her bias and personal agenda to besmirch America, what protections do we have as parents to protect against a similar material or curriculum, as well as how it's presented to our students and our children? To that end, I'm asking the board to consider adding future agendas the discussion on how to implement a plan of action in order to protect our students from inappropriate curriculum and material, and to alert parents of things that are being put forward, such as in the town of West Hartford, that I, for one, do not want to see our school district start to move in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for audience assistance? Yes. Your name, please, and address.
Hi, Danielle Whistle. I live on Fernwood Drive. I've spoken a few times, so you'll probably remember my address. So my name is Danielle. I'm a speech and language pathologist. I work with special ed kids. I would first like to say to some of the staff at Memorial, thank you. One of my daughter's therapist has been doing a fabulous job overcoming some challenges I had recently and done a really great job collaborating. What I was struggling with is that she has a sound. She's nonverbal. I'm going to share a little personal story here. She's nonverbal. She has a variety of vocalizations. When she's wearing her masks, people were telling me, oh, wow, she's saying a lot, which is great. That implies a lot of meaning. That could be more. That could be to gain attention from me, mom. That could be like, wow, this snack is delicious. Love it. But the problem I had with that is when you actually see her mouth moving, the placement of her articulators is not an it's a which subtle, but for those who understand the process behind speech and language development, that's a really big problem, because if she was out in public going people are like, oh, what is that weird sound? It sort of takes away from the effectiveness of her communication. So I was talking with her SLP like, hey, what can we do? So she was using some strategies to help her produce that appropriate sound, which was amazing because I, as a speech pathologist, have been working with my child to get that beautiful end sound, and it's really hard when you're mom trying to make your child do what you know they need to do. But the point of that is she was able to implement something that was perhaps outside of the norm for my child to be successful. this can be applicable to other students in our school who are also perhaps struggling with some of that phonemic awareness, the way sounds sound, the way your mouth has to move in order to produce those sounds. And if we're overlooking or missing those productions, then we are simply furthering challenges, potentially, with articulation, speech and language development. As we all know, segmenting, blending, phonemic awareness is a huge part of further literacy skills, is also the ability to develop appropriate language. So I know this topic has been talked about ad nauseum, but I feel that it's important to continue to find ways to address it until everyone gets to a happy medium. My second comment is in relation to the screen and stay protocol. I know that that is to be addressed this evening. I am really hopeful that we will make steps towards passing this new protocol. My comment and my question really is, of the amount of students that are quarantined, say, because of exposure, how many kids are then going home and are staying home and are then also getting COVID? If the answer is 0, 1, or 2, I'm wondering, are we making the best call to send home 30 healthy kids while East Hampton has done an amazing job with their virtual learning? We all know that virtual learning, self-learning is not the same as being in class. So I'm really hoping that we can make progress towards that objective as well, because the more kids that are staying home while being healthy really just disrupts everyone's learning, disrupts the children's learning, and I'm really hoping that we can get to a place, again, where more kids are able to stay in school, because COVID is probably not ever going away, and we can't continue to just do all of these things that, as educators, we know go against developmental best interests. So thank you for your time, and I will stay a little longer and then go put that kiddo to bed. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Danielle.
Thank you.
Anyone else, audience of citizens? All right. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion from the floor that the East Hampton Board of Education adopt the consent agenda? Second? Josh? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Now moving on to Student Board of Education representatives. If you want, Shani, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So for our school updates, on Friday, November 19th, Caitlin from the American Red Cross Blood Drive that took place in the gym as part of her senior project. Students 16 and older were eligible to donate, and it was really nice to see a lot of donations being made. Spanish Club is hosting a cooking competition resembling the cooking show Chopped to cook up Latin dishes and to eat. That's being hosted tomorrow. Business Club is doing a sticker fundraiser with East Hampton logo to raise money to join the Hvac Chapter. For athletic updates, to wrap up all fall sports, the boys soccer team and volleyball team will be having their sport banquet. The Cognition East Hampton Hill Ring Co-op football team will have their senior night this Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. And we're really excited to enter our winter sports this season to cheer on our girls and boys basketball teams, our indoor track team, and cheerleading athletes. The cheerleading team will be having a holiday week fundraiser to raise money for the HHS cheerleader.
Very good. Any questions for Ashani? I don't know if Chris ever asked if there's any questions for you, but you're well-spoken, so if you want to keep shining out with your communication skills, I'll open it up the floor for anyone for Ashani. All right. Moving on to personnel. Personnel has not met since the summer, since we went over the teacher's contract and other contracts, so nothing new to report. Moving on to policy and curriculum. Nancy.
We met tonight with our new makeup of members, and later in the program we do have a second read.
All right. Now moving on to finance, transportation, building, and grounds. Josh is the new chair, so we probably don't yet have much to speak about. Excuse me?
No report.
No report, understood. I figured I'd give you the option to say something if you had something on your mind. All right, moving on to communication, superintendent's report.
So just briefly, for our new members in the board, each month Shelley is going to give you an enrollment update. And it looks like this, it's in your packet. If you ever have any questions as you get that, you're welcome to ask. But it gives you just a running total of where we are this year, and you can compare it to last year. What we do once a year is our enrollment projections. And just to compare the two, if you try to make them go together, the enrollment update from Shelley that we do monthly, it does not include the about 38 students who we know are temporary homeschool. Now, if a student is a permanent homeschooler, they do not count in our enrollment. But we know we have about 38 students who, because of the pandemic, have chosen homeschool for this year. We anticipate that the vast majority of them will be back next school year. So these numbers do not include the temporary homeschool students. The NESDEC projections that you have, and these will be on our website as of tomorrow. There'll also be a link to them in the update this coming week for anybody in the public that would like to scrutinize them. As you're looking at our historic enrollment on page 2, if you look at the bottom line of that top section, that's the current enrollment. Now keep in mind, so we get accurate projections. This does include the temporary homeschool students, but it does not include the magnet students and the outplaced students. So this historic enrollment is only the students typically in our classrooms. The district is responsible for all magnet students, and the district's responsible obviously for our special and outplaced students, but they are not included in these figures. So if you look at this, you can rationalize the numbers are actually the same, even though on paper they don't quite look the same. If you turn to page 4, this is the one that we'd like to look at budget time. And I'd call your attention to line 2 on this, because this is the projected enrollment for next year. NESDEC has been pretty accurate for this community as far as enrollment. But even with NESDEC, I don't recommend that you look past the 3 years, because when it gets into that darker blue shade, that's the projected estimate of births in this community. And giving housing starts and home sales and things like that, that can change very quickly. But if you look at this year and maybe the next 2, you kind of get a sense of what our enrollment will be. Keep in mind, this includes our temporary homeschool students, but it does not include our magnet students and our outplaced special ed students. If you jump for a minute to page 6, this is the historical, just a flow. If I gave you this 3 years ago, you'd also see that dip in the next 10 years projected. But as you see here, we've been fairly steady for the last 5 or 6 years. I'm not sure that this dip is accurate, but I would look at the next 2 to 3 years and say that may very well be where we are. If you jump to page 7, it shows you the enrollments of the various buildings. So this is K through 5, and this is high school and middle school. We have seen the drop-off of elementary students. Actually, it projected more of a drastic drop-off about 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago. But what we've seen is pretty steady classes, but we've reached the point where we've gone from about 140 per class, K through 3, even K through 5, where we have 7 sections of students, to now K through 5, where we have 6 sections of students. So next year projection for classes will be 6 teachers K through 4. We'll still have 7 sections in 5. And then the following year, we'll have 6 sections per student. I know members of the town council are always concerned when we talk budget. They say, once you hire a teacher, we never get rid of them. That's just really not the case. We have the exact numbers of teachers that we need for the classroom. So in the last 4 to 5 years, we've gone from 7 sections in every grade down to about 6 sections. With the exception of grades 4 and 5, they are 7 sections this year. And then this is a fascinating one. This is on page 8, and you kind of see the lower high school numbers here. This was the main construction years of the high school, but now you see the numbers back up. And what we're seeing is there was a time when students looked at the construction, and if you didn't pass by the high school, this was a construction zone inside and outside. And we found our lowest numbers at the high school were those years, and we feel like more students picked other options for the magnet schools or Vinyl Tech or VOAG in Middletown. But you can kind of see 535, 538, 538, those numbers are just a bit higher. And then what's always fascinating to look at, because this is based on live births, for the last several years, our enrollment is equal or above the number of live births. So a lot of projections are done based on what they assume births will be 5 years prior or 4 years prior to entering school. And you can see that our births were higher than the enrollment until about 2015, and then the enrollment has been equal to or higher than the births. You could argue what that means, or it's just a kind of a point of interest. So if you have any questions of this, I'll be glad to answer it quickly. If you want to just take a few minutes or weeks to look at it, you can ask me any follow-up questions at any time. But we do this each fall. It's projections for the next year. It's kind of good to have whenever we do a building project, and we're going to talk about the middle school roof project and things like that. Anything to get state funding, you've always got to have accurate projections on hand. So it's good to do them every year. We pay to belong to NESDEC. One of the advantages, they will do projections as part of that fee that we pay to be part of. Any quick questions?
Paul, the 38 students you mentioned that we expect to come back to the class, and that would be categorized under outside magnet? Is that where we're?
No, they are not included in these numbers.
Not at all. Okay, so I saw 38.
Because technically students who are who do homeschooling are disenrolled from the school, so they appear nowhere. So we have 38 to 40 students who appear nowhere on this sheet on our official enrollment that we report to the state, but we anticipate them coming back. So we can get accurate projections, I've included them in the grade that they belong in, just so as we do years down the road, we're not looking at all of a sudden 38 students who are likely going to come back, but we've discounted in the projections.
Sharon, you always have some questions or anything to bring up. Do you have anything to add to Paul with what he said about the enrollment?
Yeah, special education budget has remained the same. The census is about the same. Special education.
The number of students?
Yeah.
Totally involved in special ed or outplacements?
Totally involved.
Totally involved, we're still kind of below the state average, but special ed numbers are across the state going up. So we do have, each year we have more students enrolled in special education.
More so than last year.
Rod, our numbers are up a little from last year.
Yes, they continue to increase, same as every town in the state.
Now, Josh, since you were on the board last, what Rod really has done a great job of is creating programs to keep those students in district. First, because that's the best thing for the student, to be educated with their peers. And second, because it really is a fraction of the cost of outplacements. So we have some very good programs in each of our buildings now. It's not just in the elementary. It's reached the point where we have students in each of those programs in each of our schools. But we'll do a little presentation because I think that's important around budget time to see how we're trying to, with a good return on investment, saving quite a bit of money.
Any further questions for Paul? All right, we'll move on to program presentation.
So I'm going to introduce our new Director of Operations, Steve Fontanella, and our Director of Technology, Rich Fielding, to come down and just give you some highlights of what we're putting in capital this year. For those board members that are new, the capital budget is not included in the education budget, but these are big items. It's part of the town's budget. The town puts elements into the capital budget, we put elements into the capital budget. If they're gonna buy a fire truck or new equipment or vehicles, they put it there, and you're gonna see some of the things that we're planning to put in capital as well. The process is, on the capital committee for the town and school, there are 2 Board of Finance members, 2 town council members, and 1 board member gets to sit on the committee that decides what goes into capital. And so their meetings are going to begin in December. They go into December, January, February, and by March, the capital committee makes its recommendations to the town. So at this point, Rich and Steve will bring you up to speed on exactly what is included in capital planning at this point for next year.
These out. I forgot to get these to Paul. Sorry.
You get the clicker too.
When do you get the copy?
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Put these here if anybody wants one. So this document that you see up here is the standard capital requests that go through the process and end up in the last pages of the budget that goes to referendum. We're not going to zoom in on that, but we are going to focus on the educational part. You can see, actually, if I go back, the circle part is the education part of the whole capital budget, and then the rest are all town departments. So buildings and grounds in the capital budget that the town has is separated out in all these different lines, and technology is typically squished into 1 or 2 lines. The CCTV upgrade has been in buildings and grounds, but we're kind of moving it to technology since the video surveillance system kind of falls under my domain. So the 2 areas we're going to first talk about are the CCTV, and then I've also further broken down the technology into the major groups that we're applying for or proposing to the capital committee. So the CCTV upgrades for next year are to replace 35 of the cameras here at the high school. There's 51 total cameras in the system right now that were mostly implemented during the building project in 2015. Several of those cameras have failed, 10 recently all at once, due to a major network surge that we had. And it turns out, as we're replacing the cameras, that while the manufacture date on the cameras was 2015, the boards inside were actually 2009. And so what we're looking at are replacing the rest of the cameras that are part of that project, because replacing them on an ongoing basis doesn't really fit within the repairs budget that I have been allocated. So the other nice benefit of that is we can switch over to newer technology, which allows us to switch from directional cameras to 360-degree cameras. If you look actually back at this map here, right around where room 202 is, and you can see 3 cameras positioned in order to show 3 views of a 4-way intersection. Those 3 cameras installed still didn't show the 4th hallway, but when we put in a 360 camera to replace those one, because 2 of those were failed, we now have a view of all 4 hallways with 1 camera. So we're able to actually replace 51 cameras with only 48 cameras. And again, this is an example of a spot outside where there's an exterior issue where people were getting onto the roof of the building. So we had to actually change the direction of the camera, which used to point at the concession stand. We had to move it to point to the bathrooms to be able to see who was getting on and off. Now we have 1 camera that gets us the whole view, plus the exterior door that we didn't previously have a view of with 1 camera. Okay, and then we're going to focus on the technology items. Of those listed, the highest priority item for me and for the district is a replacement of our firewall. That is the #1 most critical piece of our security, for our network security. It was installed during the building project, so it's reaching 7 years old. It went end of life to the manufacturer last year. Not end of support, just end of sale. But that ends up meaning that it gets exponentially more expensive to get licensing and support on. If anything fails, it can become harder and harder for replacement. We do have a contract with a company out of Brantford, Advanced Office Systems, so we do have very quick replacement if it does fail. However, the cost of that is, like I said, growing exponentially. One of the really nice things about the firewall and other network components is that they are E-rate reimbursable. So each year we apply for reimbursement from the federal government for certain items, and eligible items were usually reimbursed up to 50% of the initial cost. We budget the entire amount because we still need that firewall, and there's a possibility we don't get the money, so we stay wise, we budget the full amount. When we learn whether or not we got funded for E-rate towards the end of the budget process, that number can be reduced. These 4 items were all items purchased just before or during the high school building renovation. Several of the desktops that are in there were purchased before and were for computer labs at the middle school, and then computers around the district. We also have high school desktops that were in there. Those are those middle 2 items. The top item are the rest of the laptops that we need to replace the existing fleet that are deployed at the high school for high school teachers, as well as administrative staff and support staff around the district. This year we purchased about half that number, and then so next year we'll replace the rest of them, kind of doing it in waves. And then the last item are Chrome boxes, which are microcomputers that we put behind the TVs, like the one out here in the lobby. That's what that's a picture of. That supports digital signage throughout the district, so when you walk into one of the schools, you'll most likely be welcomed by a TV like that that shows images of the school, possibly a map of the school, and other things like that. We also have them placed around the school for, like Memorial, there's one that shows kids how to use the motion pathway in the lobby. It's a very inexpensive digital signage method that we use that's based on Google. And then the last thing is something that I've been working on for about 1.5 years, and that is a plan to replace all of the projector and interactive panels K through 8. The high school, all of the interactive panels were replaced as part of the building project. But Memorial Center and the middle school all have a hodgepodge of interactive projectors, smart boards. These are the devices that a teacher stands in front of the class, projects an image, and then interacts with it and shows the kids various things, typically on their whiteboard, so they can also still use the surface with their dry erase markers. We've looked at digital displays, so big TVs with touch interface that could be mounted on the wall or on a cart. But in the end, replacing the interactive projectors that are wall-mounted and shoot straight down over the whiteboard is going to end up being the best cost. They come in around $2,000 to $2,500. $2,500 is if it's includes installation from a third-party contractor, whereas a TV tends to cost between $3,000 and $5,000 and doesn't give you any flexibility in the size. If you get about a 65-inch screen for that amount, whereas a projector you can get up to 110 inches with the same device depending on how you mount it. The reason this is happening, so many of our projectors right now look like this image on the left. This is one of the extreme examples, but a teacher at the center school has put in multiple trouble tickets. We replaced the lamp and the projector. We go into the classroom, and this is what it looks like when she's trying to project her screen. There's nothing we can do for this projector other than replace it. The replacement, which is what I'm proposing, is the Epson Breitling 75 WI. This is no image manipulation other than cropping, but that is the difference between the old machine and the new machine.
The screen on the left, is that supposed to be of the same students on the right?
It's the same district webpage, but if you look at our district webpage, that image slides. So everything else is the same, but yes, it's a very similar picture on the left to the right.
For students or taking class at home, what image do they see on their Chromebook?
Sal, we don't have any students taking class from home.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, wait. If someone's quarantined,
If someone's quarantined, it is not synchronous learning with the classroom.
And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve, who's going to focus on the buildings and
I
grounds.
have a question.
Sure.
To go back to your to your desktops. Yeah, the desktops. Oh, that's it. Are those desktops incorporated in the curriculum, or are the students using those for classes?
So there's a number of different uses, depending on the model. Many of them are actually in the offices. The nurses, the custodians, all have desktops to run those locations. But yes, there are also computer labs that are still using desktop computers.
And we don't have what do you call it? Every programs where every so many years.
A replacement
desktops
cycle?
are replaced, we don't do that?
So this is it. That's how the town has structured our replacement for technology. Anything goes through the capital plan. I go through this process every year where I meet with you guys, I meet with the capital committee, board of finance, town council, and go through and explain everything about, and I have typically a 5-year replacement cycle for technology. And then in the end, I get what's given, and everything that I don't get, I just push on to the next year. So often we end up with technology that's 10 years old when it should only really ideally get to 6 years old or 7 years old. And that's what we end up focusing time on, is repairing and upgrading those older technologies.
What operating system are they using?
We are on Windows 10 for everything. We're incapable of Windows 11 on most of our technology, most of like any of these desktops.
Any further questions for Rich? All right. Move on to Steve.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we're going to focus on everything highlighted in yellow. I'll work through it quickly. This is the Memorial School foyer. We're proposing to replace the floor with remove the carpet and put in a flooring that's of a vinyl nature, whether it's a VCT or a vinyl plank or something like that. So it's a more cleanable surface, more stain-free surface, and it doesn't smell as much. So we're on the verge of having to work through the holes, the hallways in the school, all the way through to replace. So looking at about 14.5 there. That right there is a picture of the center school elevator control. It is recommended by Otis that we install a new power unit and solid state starter, as they have reached their useful and their end of life. The current parts that are in there are now obsolete. Replacing the components will increase the reliability and safety, and we will have to pretty soon, when the useful life of the elevator is over, do a complete rebuild. When we do the rebuild, having this already done will save us about $10,000 on that project. We also have another, planned obsolescence, but over at Memorial School there's a fire pump controller that has reached the end of its life, and it doesn't charge the batteries anymore, the starting batteries. So we're unable to replace the components as it is because they don't make them any longer. So we're proposing a new panel.
How old are these units? The elevator, the pump, the fire pump?
The elevator's approaching a little over 30 years, and the fire pump is well older than that.
So if it breaks, it breaks. You can't, unless
Well,
you
yeah,
go to a
we're-
machine shop to make something
Currently,
custom.
we're charging the batteries with a trickle charger from a car. This is the center school gym floor. Should be maintained or refinished every 5 years or so. This hasn't been done in a long time. I'm proposing that we we sand this down. There's a number of repairs that need to be made to it. There's a lot of pieces missing. We're fortunate enough that the floor does go underneath the stage, and we'll be able to remove some of that wood and use it to patch the holes that are in the floor there. We have about 2 or 3 more times we can go through this process. So we have about 10 to 15 years left on the life of that floor before it has to be replaced. But as far as safety, it's slippery, it's got some holes in it. It really should be addressed sooner than later. This is an automation system that we've been going through over at middle school. We've gone through 2 phases already. Phase 3 was approved last year and is going to be updated this end of fall, winter time. What this is allowing us to do is communicate with our boilers, our water heaters, our air handlers. We can control airflow, so how many times we change the air in each classroom, that kind of thing, which is very helpful with COVID. We can also tell when our filters need to be replaced. We get alerts when things are starting to fail so that we can proactively repair and do a lot of preventative maintenance ahead of time. So phase 4 of the 5-phase process is what I'm proposing for this coming summer. Then we have some general items. We roll money every year into HVAC replacement. We have units that, Memorial Middle School that are starting to get to the point where they're going to need to be replaced. So this allows us to have some funds to do so during the school year without any interruption of service. The flooring we go through and we replace some damaged flooring, and we continue our abatement of asbestos. Some of the tiles that we have, it's a little more expensive to remove them because we have to go through the abatement process before we reinstall the new floor tiles. And school safety, radio, security locks, window film, exterior classroom numbers, all these things that we need on a yearly basis to keep everybody safe. LED lighting conversions. We have a lot. This is the ceiling at Memorial School cafeteria. There's a lot of areas that we need to do this. A lot of hallways, a lot of classrooms, a lot of gyms and cafeterias with these high ceilings. We spend a tremendous amount of money, labor and material, replacing ballasts, lamps, bringing in lifts, and then we tie up our staff and outside subcontractors, again, replacing all of these things. So converting everything over to LED is going to save us electricity and a substantial amount of labor every year. Also, the lighting is better, more controllable. All the new LED lighting you can control with your phone or with dimmer switches on the walls so that you can optimize the light in all the classrooms. This is just a picture of the playscape over at Memorial School. We every year go through and replace the mulch. It's a safety mulch. It needs to be 8 to 12 inches thick. It's almost like a rubberized material so that when the kids fall, they're less apt to have an injury. And then general interior finishes, which is ceiling tiles, blinds, trim, doors, locks, anything in the buildings that they wear out after a while. So this is a number there to fix that. Over at 94 Main Street, we're currently occupying, the facilities is in there, IT is in there, and the Transition Academy are in there. It looks like we need to update our burglar and fire panel, as the components that are in there now will not communicate with any outside monitoring services. So that number is to update the panel so that we can get back online with all of that. This is the parking lot at 94 Main Street. I put money in here for that. There's a bunch of potholes along where those 2 white cars are. This is the area across the street from Poe's, all the left-hand side of that parking lot, and all the way down the left-hand side of 94 Main Street. It's deteriorating. I'm not sure what it's going to look like after we plow it this winter, but it's something that we need to address at some point soon. And this is not for this year. This is going to come up in the next 2 to 3 years. This is the middle school roof replacement in its entirety. It's going to be a large-scale project with the town. We're going to apply for assistance with the state, looking for them to cover approximately half of the project. And it's a big number. But the roof is, we chase leaks on it every year, 20, 30 plus. So that's the end of my capital presentation. I'd like to roll right into the high school fields, just to update you on the construction of that, if that's okay. These are new tennis courts. A lot of work went into these. So we put a concrete foundation on the fencing that goes all the way around the outside. The base of the courts was graded and compacted. 2 layers of asphalt have been installed already. Eagle fence will be back out on December 6th to reinstall the bottom fence rail as well as all the fabric. We're scheduled for the spring for the color acrylic surfacing application, as the asphalt has to cure, and then after the winter has to warm up to over 45 degrees. So we're kind of at the mercy of Mother Nature on finishing this. There is an option, if we want to open the tennis courts earlier than we're able to put the acrylic surfacing on, that we can just line stripe them the way they are, and we can use them as straight asphalt. There's our running track, and then a little further along, when we talk about that section of the soccer right there, but that's the only section of the soccer field that was disturbed. Rubber surfacing has been removed from the old track. Track's been milled down, and all the potholes and everything that were under the track have been paved and replaced. Paving is now complete, and minor touch-ups will be done to rubberize the surfacing in the spring. We're in the same situation as the tennis courts with that. The temperature has to be above 45 degrees. But the asphalt needs 27 days to cure, so what that does is puts us right in the middle of winter, and the asphalt's going to be too cold at that point. Let's see. That's what that says. And there's our baseball field. So baseball and soccer. The soccer, the proposed area on the soccer field has been tilled and is currently being graded in preparation for the sod installation. Sod installation on both fields, soccer and baseball, will begin November 30th. Albeit a little late in the year, but their Mountain View is warranting that the sod will catch, because it will knit down the roots all winter long. So the top of it goes dormant and the roots continue to grow. So we'll be in good shape for the spring on that. Baseball field's also been tilled and graded. Irrigation has been installed in the field and tied into the existing system. And minor grading adjustments. We've been making some adjustments along the way here. As we grade it and we get rain, you start to see where some of the little potholes are, and then we regrade from there. So right now, this has been all graded so that instead of collecting water out there, it's all going to run off the back and out and down the hill. It seems to be working very well, because that was after a heavy rain, that photo. Again, the sod will be installed beginning November 30th. And right now, we're on schedule and anticipate little to no impact on spring athletics, because everything will be sodded, irrigation will be done. The only 2 things we'll have open for the spring are the resurfacing of the track and the tennis. And the committee's been working real hard, so I want to thank them for all their efforts. And that's all I have for you. Thank you guys for your time.
Steve, thank you. Just for our new members to the board, the athletics project is being funded with dollars remaining from the high school project. So that was approved by Board of Finance and Town Council. So all of the field projects now are covered in that. As you look at this wonderful list, and I know Rich is expanded there, of about $823,000, keep in mind that over the last several years, we have not come anywhere close to getting $823,000 for our capital funding. That's why you keep hearing some of these. If you've sat on the board for a while, you keep hearing some of these keep coming back each year. As the capital committee meets, they'll ask Steve and Rich for priorities, but we'll keep you posted. You're also going to have a board member who will come back and give you regular updates as far as capital as well.
One question, you mentioned that some of the funds came from leftover funds from the building of the high school.
From the high school building committee, the building, the fields.
How much money remains? Is there any money that's remaining now?
No, they used up everything that was there, plus money that was in capital as a sinking fund for the track. So yes, that's not something we can go to any longer.
I remember that the middle school roof was a problem many years ago.
Yes.
Was repaired?
We've been doing repairs on it, but now it's time for the whole thing to be replaced.
It's been an ongoing issue for a number of years.
Yes, it has been an issue.
Okay. Has it been resolved?
We are repairing leaks as they occur, but it really is time to do the whole roof. And in order to get, and I think it's, in order to get the funding reimbursement from the state, it's got to be more than 20 years old, and I think we've hit that at this point. So we'll be working with the state to start that process. It's a long process, that's why it's kind of listed for fiscal year 24. But unlike the high school building project, there's no deadline for submission. It's what they call a non-priority purchase. So as soon as we have approval from the town, it'll have to go to referendum, it'll have to be approved by all the boards. Then it gets in line with the state and approved for the next year's budget. But as you're aware, the town votes in a referendum on the entire amount, kind of knowing that we'll get about a 51-52% reimbursement on the roof.
Any further questions? All right, I'd like to move on to unfinished business, starting with the appointment of education subcommittee members. I have the list. And just to start with policy and curriculum, Nancy Oakley will be chair. Members will be Martha Wick, Mike Buck, and Sal Nusafara. Budget ad hoc will be Christina, Martha, and Nancy Kohler. Personnel will be myself as chair, Nancy Oakley, and Christina as members. And under building, finance, and transportation, Josh Pidio, chair, Ken Barber, Sal, and Nancy K, rather, forgive me, will be members. Any question on committee subpositions? All right. And for the record, I want to make Nancy pointed out that I did not include her on the committee, my mistake, and just for the record, just want to add that note. All right, moving on to a project graduation update with our two Miss Buchan and Byrne.
Jim, as they are coming down, do you want to make an announcement about your capital representative?
Sure. Oh yes, Nancy Kohler will be our capital representative again this year.
At your last meeting, we talked about project graduation. They have specifically requested you to consider the high school as the permanent home of project graduation and to waive custodial fees for that event. I'm going to turn this right over to whoever's going to hold it. Yes.
I'm not sure how this works, but okay. I am Cindy Buchanan. I'm the current president of Project Graduation Committee at East Hampton High School. It's Patty Byrne. She's past president. I'm going to go over a little bit of what we are and what we do and why we're asking for money. So here we are. This committee was created, I think, in 2006 to provide a drug and alcohol-free post-graduation party for our graduating seniors. Started in 2006. The first party was in 2009. It took that long to raise all the money. The party has historically been at the Groton Subbase. Some pictures from the most recent party, which would have been 2019. A lot of different things that the Subbase offer for kids to do. A lot of food, a lot of fun, a lot of time with kids. And adults. The basic of the fundraising for this group has been the Stop and Shop A+ rewards. Easy way, you go shopping, we earn money. Historically, it's brought us at least 15 grand a year. In some years it was higher. All you had to do was go shopping. Everybody goes to the grocery store. That program no longer exists. So we're automatically down at least 15 grand in fundraising a year. So we thought, what do we do? Due to COVID, we were not able to use the sub-base. So we came to Mr. Berner and Mr. Smith and said, hey, can we try to recreate the sub-base events at the high school? They said, yes, we did it. It went tremendously well. And it was also much cheaper because we did not have to pay for the facility. And here are some pictures from last year. In addition to using the facility, we also had the cafeteria involved, and they provided some food for the kids right after graduation, so we tried to keep everybody involved that has dealt with these students throughout the years. We had cornhole outside, we had a video game truck, we had dancing in the gym, food in the cafeteria, movies, a lot of different things that we would have had at the sub-base we tried to replicate here. We did bring in outside hypnotist that ran a show for 90 minutes in the auditorium. I'm not going to read through the cost, but last year's total cost was $13,000, which included food, rental of all the items we brought in, goodie bags, which we give to the children who come, swag for when they come in. This was a Hawaiian theme, so Lays were part of that swag. We also had the light-up bracelets and necklaces to wear. And then we had an art class that we had paper soup. I'm not going to go through the details, but that's how much it costs. Years past, it's been costing anywhere between $20,000 and $24,000 for the sub-base and the other things that goes with it. Our request, very simply, is to pay for the custodial fees, which in the grand scheme of things of the budget is not that much. But if we could get those paid for, it will enable us to focus our fundraising on making sure we maintain the high level of quality and fun for our graduating seniors. Currently, we are probably fundraised through the next 3 classes if we maintain the level of going to the sub-base, and we decided too expensive. So we're just asking for help on that little bit of custodial overtime to help us maintain the same quality that we've been able to provide.
So if Stop and Shop was still funding the program, you would still be at the sub-base more than likely?
No.
No.
No, we decided from looking at it, class sizes have been getting bigger, fundraising, the costs there have been getting higher, that we started looking at it a year or two ago right before COVID hit, to say, how can we
It was becoming more cost prohibitive.
And so once the party hit, it was, okay, let's try to think of another way. And I've seen a lot of other schools do this locally. They do it at their high school, or they do it at a venue in their town. And that's what we thought. We'd try to do that and see if we could start a new tradition and involve the town more in it too. Like we had a taste of East Hampton. We had different restaurants help donate some of the food that the kids ate. Some of the prizes were from this. So we're like, hey, you tried this restaurant, maybe you'll go with your family now. You know, we were trying to just get everything East Hampton, do a little
And
bit.
historically, many of us kind of know fundraising is really, really hard, and we are all schools, all groups trying to pull from the same bucket.
I'd like to also add, Jim, when I graduated high school, we did something like this, this exact thing. And it was the most positive memory ever, so thanks for doing this. It was, even for kids that don't necessarily look forward to going to school, it leaves a lasting positive memory. And I still tell stories to my friends today from this night, from the hypnotist, actually. One of my good friends that lives in town was one of the ones hypnotized, so it's just, this is really meaningful, and thank you for doing that.
This also gives us a little flexibility on graduation. Usually we'll have a conversation in January saying, oh my God, you're gonna pick graduation because the sub-base is only available on June 11th or June 17th or June, because schools, are all trying to get a Friday night. So this really gives us flexibility because if we're doing graduation, it's not locked into a date where the sub-base is available.
And that could be a date that's not convenient for the graduation, too early, too late, so having it at the school.
What we've done, if possible, we've tried to do graduation on a Friday night for families, if that works. and it's a little easy to get chaperones for project graduation because a lot of them don't have to work on Saturdays. But Friday nights, it's hard for me to commit that, oh yeah, we're gonna go to the graduation on a Friday night, not in January, not knowing what the weather pattern is.
And we can, not being tied to a venue that's going to make us lock in a date. The school is open, and we know the date of graduation, the school's empty, the kids are already gone, you can set up in the morning, it gives a lot of flexibility to do a lot of different things.
Do we own a lot of the games and tables and stuff? Is it stored away somewhere? Like
We hired someone to bring all the stuff in. We don't have places to store things. If anyone knows of anyone that's willing to donate a storage facility, we can look into having our own stuff. But at this point, we just don't have the storage space anywhere. My garage was full of all the decorations for a while, and then they went to somebody's house.
What happened to 2020?
2020, due to COVID, we were not able to throw a party. We are planning on having a dinner dance DJ party for them in January. So it's going to be a little bit smaller than that they would have gotten, but due to the times, this is what we can offer. And that's, we're planning that for the early part of January.
I think we've already got 35 kids on.
Yeah.
And Josh, that's the year we did the modified graduation with DPH support. We did it in front of the schools. Students were actually in their cars and came up to get their diploma. Oh, right, of course.
And just with that too, with the goodie bags, the children who attend the function get a goodie bag, except in 2020, everyone got one because you didn't get a party. So that was a little bit different thing. We spent a little bit more on the goodie bags for them because everyone was going to get one because we couldn't give them one.
Audio.
Yes.
Any further questions for the project graduation members?
Can you just go back and, you said you are currently funded to run it for the next 3 years?
It's 3 to 4, because we still have some fundraising that we're doing, and what we're kind of living off of now is all that Stop and Shop money from years past.
Our plan is to be fiscally smart and basically, we could stay at the sub-base for a number of years and then say, oh, well, our kids are done. Somebody else has to
We'll have to start charging you down.
We want to be able to get this set up so that, have a program set up so that the next group of parents coming in, here's what we've been doing, here's it's sustainable.
We would like to not charge children, which is something we had talked about if we were going to maintain the same level in the sub-base.
Wouldn't this be something that the student body would be more involved with, looking into themselves, because it's their part?
They certainly could be.
We've tried different events to get them involved at times, and they do help out with some of our fundraising events. But you've got high school kids who are doing their band stuff, doing their acting stuff, doing their sports, they don't have time to.
We have talked about a bunch of different things to try to get the students more involved, because they have not been historically involved, and therefore to get them a little more invested. I still don't think it's not going to raise the 20 grand we lose from Stop and Shop.
I was thinking about the student council, they like the student body president, or class presidents, but they would run that. How do you consider giving them,
Sal, if I can just interject for a minute, every kid who's in baseball or sport does fundraising for that team. Our music kids are doing fundraising for Florida. Everybody, all the kids are involved in fundraising. To ask them to take this on too, I think, the nature of this is the parents are throwing their students a safe graduation party. So we're not putting the burden on the students to raise the money because they're so busy raising money for everything they already participate in. And this is one that the parents really have taken great pride in providing that safe graduation. And it's important that be on the same night as graduation. Our goal is to make sure there's a place for them to have a great time with their peers, with adult supervision, and no alcohol, no drugs. It is substance free, and it's just meant to be a good time.
I will shamelessly plug Amazon Smiles. That is a great way for anyone who's shopping to help us raise funds for graduation. You're going to shop anyway, Amazon Smiles, we get part of, however they decide with the percentages. If you choose Project Graduation, they will get a percentage.
And Project Graduation, will be looking to each year, not just this year, pay for the custodians.
Yes,
As
we
part
would
of
like the custodial fees paid in perpetuity. And in addition to having it at the high school, I think that's kind of hard. Okay. So having it at the high school forever and ever and ever, and paying for the custodial fees. I realize the amount up there is going to change based on inflation and whatnot, but yes, if we could have it paid every year, that would be my goal.
There are certain nonprofit groups that you do pay for. When the Rotary Club does their breakfast with Santa, we do not charge them for the custodial fees for breakfast with Santa. It's not quite 32 hours of custodians, but there is precedent for us not charging nonprofit groups.
And you say 2 custodians, that's the same 2 custodians for 32 hours, or rotating two people at a time?
I can't speak to that specifically because I don't really know what their contract is. It depends on the hours and how long it is and how it's scheduled, because some of them are already here for graduation. And then once days that would be Steve might be able to. But there's a reason why it's done the way it is. I'm not sure.
Okay. All right, any further questions? I'd like to make a motion, someone on the floor, to approve Project Graduation being held at the East Hampton High School.
I make that motion.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Second motion for Project Graduation, to approve Project Graduation custodial costs being paid for by the Board of Education. Do I have a motion on the floor? Do I have a second? Second? Any discussion?
The only question I had is the budget and stuff like that. Do we have to discuss that with any other department heads, or is that, this is just my novice mind working here? Can we just approve something like that, or discussing budgets for other things also?
The superintendent and business manager would ensure that that funding was always available.
Okay. That's my only question.
That would be built into our budget.
Aye.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Very good. Now moving on, next item under unfinished business is discussion and possible action on screening stay.
I won't go into a great detail of it, but just to keep you posted, your questions from last time, were there any legal implications? Our school attorney assured us that because this is approved by the governor, approved by the State Department of Education, approved by the Department of Public Health, you are not putting yourself with any concern about liability, as long as your administrators and superintendent were following it appropriately. The other question is, which schools around us are doing it now? Everybody except us is the answer. Portland is in, Middletown, East Hampton, Marlborough, Graham, Andover, Hebron.
I'd like to make a motion to pass that, please.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure. Really drop.
Is there some sort of protocol in place for, if we know that there is a case, a diagnosed case, we're going to screen and keep kids in school. If there's another case in that classroom that's diagnosed, do we just continue to screen and stay?
No, we always have the flexibility based on the situation to say, screen and stay really doesn't apply here.
Okay.
When you were asked a question by Darlene this earlier, it's not Darlene, it's Danielle. When Danielle asked you, keep in mind, we are not quarantining the numbers that we did last year. We're doing a much more targeted quarantine. But even last year and this year, of all the students we've quarantined this year, we can really only trace one student who was quarantined who likely got it from the classmate as a result of his quarantine. So what we do with this is, obviously, we continue to watch. If we felt like we had done a screen and stay and allowed 3 kids to participate in the screen and stay, if one of them gets it, then as we expand beyond that, we probably would quarantine kids around that person without the option of screen and stay. Because we don't want to break out in a particular classroom.
So do we monitor at school as well? I know parents have a large, playing a huge role in this, in monitoring their kids at home. Are we doing temperature checks or anything at school? If there is a case in a classroom, do we monitor at school at all?
So if for the kids that aren't quarantined?
If there is a case in a classroom.
Yes.
And we are screening and keeping kids in school.
We are not screening students who are not quarantined.
Okay.
So currently there is no in-school screening. Now the principals will email, especially the elementary school where they're all in that classroom all day long. They'll let the entire class know. Like you get the generic message from me that a student memorial. But the kids in K through 5, they're getting a message from the principal that says a student in your classroom. So they're encouraging them to monitor them for symptoms. So even though you weren't quarantined, understand that a student in your classroom was. Now Joey particularly will get calls and say, well, why wasn't my kid quarantined? So she'll explain that, the teacher didn't feel like you were close contact to that particular student, but if you notice any symptoms, call us and, just make sure that, your child continues to be well.
Okay. And do we know how teachers feel about it?
I think it is easier for teachers to have students in front of them than to be sending materials and home. Keep in mind, we're not quarantining the numbers that we did last year.
Oh, I'm quite aware of that.
Yeah.
I just am wondering if teachers have expressed any feelings about this.
I have not received any objections from teachers.
Thank you.
Any further questions? All in favor to approve screen and stay as is? Aye.
And just a note, in your packet is the affirmation that we ask parents to fill out and then send back with the students when they come.
All right, moving on to the next 10.6, a review of recommended Board of Education policy 4118.12, freedom of speech, second reading. I'd like to
As we explained last time, this was just a policy that is a brand new policy. It speaks to the responsibilities of speech in the classroom. In other words, that we want people to be able to express their thoughts, but express it in an appropriate manner, given the classroom of students.
Do you take into consideration that speech can be physical, as well as you can wear speech, you can do something with your body, not just verbal? Speech has a very big umbrella, so you express yourself through the way you physically.
So for example, this is a policy for staff members. This is not a student-free speech. This is a policy-free speech. So yes, for example, if a faculty member decides that he was going to raise his middle finger in the classroom, we don't consider that free speech. Is that the physical?
No, if you're burning the American flag.
I'm not really concerned about that. But yes, if we had a faculty member burning the American flag in front of his students on the school floor, I believe that we are well within our rights to take disciplinary action.
Any further questions? I'd like to make a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent of schools and the Board of Education to approve recommended policy 4118.12, freedom of speech. All in favor?
Sure, there's no discussion of that.
Oh, did I miss the discussion? Oh.
Video had discussion prior.
Oh, okay.
But we didn't go into
my
discussion.
mistake.
Just going forward.
Sure. Okay.
Just follow protocol for that.
I will, thank you.
I'll second motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Moving on to new business, DACO bus contract, 1-year extension. I'd like to make a motion to approve the 1-year DACO bus contract extension. I'd like to make.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I understand DACO is having an issue with certain bus lines not picking up students on time. There could be up to a half hour late. It's an issue because they are lacking the resources, the manpower. And so I wonder if some way we could address that in our contract, or is there an expectation or is there a penalty for having, not picking up the kids on time, or not, it causes disruption in the family. The parents have to now to either drive their kids themselves or take time off from work. And so I was wondering if there's a way for us to address that in this extension. Because just is there additional cost? Is there a cost factor? Are they not paying the bus drivers enough that they're not getting the recruits they need? What's the problem?
There's a nationwide shortage as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
Of bus drivers.
But we're focusing here in East Hampton,
Right.
So Sal, this speaks to next year, so let's just address this year for just a moment. So in my highlights to you this week, and I know you have an email issue, our current plan is to reroute several of the routes. We think we can do that without overcrowding the bus, and we would actually save money by not having as many buses. There is an absolute driver shortage. The DACO is working very hard to get recruits, but they find they're able to get recruits more in the urban setting than out in the suburbs. We did have 4 people training in the pipeline. It takes a long time to get trained. Everybody in that pipeline who was slated to work in East Hampton has dropped out of the program and has other jobs at this point. So yes, there is a definite shortage of drivers. Every day we are doing a little bit of rerouting. We're thinking that shortly after Thanksgiving, in fact probably the full week after Thanksgiving, we're going to begin with our rerouting. It'll be 2 less buses. It'll take a little pressure off substitutes and other things like that. So we think we have an answer for this year, and there will be a savings.
have you made that information known to the parents who are concerned right now?
Yes, we're planning to send all the information out and rerouting the Monday after Thanksgiving.
So as of right now, you haven't told anybody about this plan of rerouting?
We have not. We've been trying to speak to individuals, but we are sending out the information the Monday after Thanksgiving. To me, sending out information 2 days before Thanksgiving is very bad. People are on vacation, people are thinking of other things. So Monday, between myself and the schools, we're planning a big blitz of information. Students will get their new bus assignments. If there's a change in time, they'll get that as well. We're not doing a major overhaul. What we're doing is condensing some of the routes. So it'll impact some kids.
You don't be specific, but I'm suggesting in your in your report or put it in the town that we are looking at the situation. I don't know if anyone knows that we're looking into the situation at this time.
Oh, I believe that everybody we've spoken to who's concerned knows that we're doing our best to address it. Yes.
That was my question.
Yes, and absolutely. And then next Monday, you're going to see major communications from me and the schools highlighting information as to, if your student's bus is changing, the new pickup time, etc. And even in this contract going forward, it does address inability to run routes as far as particular savings.
Any further questions? I'd like to have a vote on approving to approve the 1-year DACO bus contract extension. All in favor? Unanimous. All right, moving on to future business.
Just for the record, Mr. Chairman, was that motioned and seconded before we vote?
I second.
Yeah.
Oh, I must have been
Mike
sleeping
Buck's
on that one, sorry.
I'll nudge you
Stop here.
next time.
Would it be appropriate, this is new business, right?
Excuse me?
Moving on to new business.
We're bringing out the new business, yes, future business.
Would it be appropriate to have the school librarians give a presentation to the board?
Based on Dominic, what is,
Based on what they're buying, their book selection, everything.
okay. So you're suggesting someone from the Board of Education talk about book selection process?
No, librarians.
Oh, librarian, okay.
Josh, if I can make a situation, I think what Dominic was referring to was what we call the classroom libraries, which are used during what we call Readers and Writers Workshop. So I'd like to have Mary start with that presentation. I'm not sure that the school, unless your daughter got a book out of the library, she probably got it out of the classroom library. Yeah.
She described it as coming from the library, generally, not classroom.
We'll have the librarians then as well.
So Judge, does that satisfy your new bid, have the librarian discuss book selection process?
How they stock the shelves.
Okay. I mean, can you be a little bit more specific, how books are chosen?
If I can, I think Josh is referring to trying to figure out if any of these books are coming in, how they're coming in, and how
The
we
selection
select
process.
the books.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So just a basic selection process of books?
Yeah. We can have it in the shelves.
Okay. And that would start with Mary in December's meeting?
Mary and the librarians, we may need to push that to January just to give them time and make sure that they're available. December can be a crazy month for staff members.
I don't know their availability right now for December.
If it's not December, we'll do that in January.
Any future business in addition to what Josh is suggesting? Personnel actions, I know of none. Paul, do you know of any personnel actions?
There are none.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, getting back to audience of citizens. Anyone like to?
I have something.
Sure.
Compensatory support Curry Lane. Two things. One, I just want to say for anyone who went to the concert, was it last week, I believe? I can't even remember. It was absolutely wonderful to see the kids singing in person. Mr. Brown, an amazing choral director, that's what we call him, right? And really just had us all really happy and wanting more. And then I just urge the board, no disrespect to Dominic, but please don't censor our kiddos. Please don't even start to look at censoring books for our kids. I'm just imploring that. It's really important that literacy is so important to little guys and big guys, and having them be able to choose their own books is extremely important, especially right now. So I just implore you not to censor our children. Thank you.
If I may, still public comment?
Yes.
Response? I feel that we can all kind of look as parents to see what is appropriate or what isn't. I'm not talking about carte blanche censorship, but by that argument, there's been literature that's highly offensive that by that argument should be allowed to be in the library and viewed. And I think that's a problematic way of looking at it, because that means anything can be available to our children. And I think that's a flawed way of kind of looking at this. So I think that we can, as adults, try to find a middle ground where even great novels can be seen inappropriate in today's setting. Maybe they should be removed. But I think that there needs to be some sort of vetting allowed for the parents to do so and have a commentary about that. An open discussion and transparency.
Thank you. Any further audience and citizens questions? All right, very good. Move on to the calendar of events as attached. Any questions on the calendar of events? None? I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.